She pulled away, and instead of chasing, you went silent. But here's the twist. The moment you stop talking is when everything changes in her mind. Silence? It speaks louder than your words ever could. Most guys panic when a woman starts pulling back. They chase, they beg, they text her nonstop, thinking they're fixing things. But what if doing nothing is actually the most powerful move you can make? What if silence, not action, is the key to getting back control, respect, and maybe even her obsession? Let's break down what actually happens in a woman's mind and in the dynamic between you when you decide to say absolutely nothing after she pulls away. Silence forces a woman to experience the contrast. See, in the early stages of any romantic connection, there's usually some level of intensity. Frequent texts, emotional exchanges, flirty conversations, late night calls. She gets used to the version of you that's responsive, engaged, and emotionally available. But when she pulls away, she subconsciously assumes she still holds your emotional attention. That's the part most guys don't realize. Even when a woman is distant, she expects to still matter to you. And when you choose to go silent instead of chasing, that contrast is shocking. She goes from being the center of attention to facing a wall of quiet. Not only is that unusual, it's deeply uncomfortable for her. The shift in energy hits her harder than any argument or explanation ever could. And that's where you start to see the layers of her psychology peel back. If she's used to being the one in control, silence threatens that control. If she's used to men trying to win her back, silence makes her question her value. If she's emotionally unsure of herself, silence amplifies those insecurities. It starts triggering all the internal noise that she was trying to avoid by pulling away in the first place. And guess what? Now you're not the one chasing validation. She is. This is also when her imagination becomes your greatest weapon, because in silence, she doesn't have your reassurance. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know how you feel. And the female brain, when left in uncertainty, starts filling in the blanks. Maybe you moved on. Maybe you don't care anymore. Maybe she messed up. That loop plays on repeat in her head, especially if there was even a shred of emotional investment. This is the part where her ego gets confused and her heart starts panicking. That's when you see the shift. The late night texts, the random likes on your old pictures, the messages from her friends checking in. She's trying to reestablish the connection, but in a way that doesn't expose her, because now she's not sure where she stands with you. And that uncertainty is uncomfortable. Here's the part that most guys overlook though. Silence doesn't just make her miss you, it allows you to recenter yourself. You stop thinking about what to text next, and you start thinking clearly about who you're really dealing with. You start observing her behavior, not just reacting to it. You start realizing whether her pulling away was just a phase or a reflection of deeper emotional immaturity. You start valuing your own peace. And that's where your strength multiplies, because now you're not acting from desperation, you're acting from self-respect. You're not chasing a connection. You're deciding whether or not she's even worth your time anymore. Think about how powerful that position is. Instead of being on your phone all day wondering what went wrong, you're hitting the gym, focusing on your goals, leveling up in silence. That shift in energy is real, and women feel it. Even if you don't post about it, even if you're off social media, your vibe changes. And that alone can mess with her head more than 100 texts ever could. She starts realizing she might have overplayed her hand. She starts remembering all the little things you did right. And now that you're not around, those memories feel heavier. There's something else about silence that plays into the psychology of attraction. It signals abundance. You're not begging for her attention because you're not starving for it. You're not chasing because you're not afraid of being alone. That's what separates a man with value from a man who's just hoping to be chosen. When you can sit in silence, even when it's uncomfortable, it shows you're emotionally grounded. It shows you don't need her to complete you. And ironically, that's what makes you more attractive. Women are highly intuitive when it comes to emotional energy. If they sense neediness, they pull back. But if they sense confidence, detachment, and presence without desperation, it draws them in. That's the essence of masculine polarity, being centered in yourself, unshaken by her emotional waves. When she pulls away and you stay silent, you're telling her without words, I don't chase, I don't beg, I don't need to explain myself. You know where to find me if you care. That kind of energy is rare. And women know it when they feel it. But here's where things get even more interesting. Over time, silence doesn't just create curiosity. It creates pressure, emotional pressure. She starts wondering if she misjudged the situation. She starts replaying old conversations in her head, wondering if she missed a red flag. She starts to question whether pulling away was the right move. And the longer you stay silent, the more she's left in that emotional limbo. That's when her need for clarity starts pushing her toward you. Not because you forced it, but because you let silence do the work for you. And when she finally does reach out, and most of the time she will, that's when you decide your next move, not before. You don't break silence just because you miss her. You wait until she breaks the silence, because now the ball is in your court. And this is important. When she reaches out, don't fall apart and immediately go back to how things were. That ruins everything. You've got to stay grounded. Ask yourself, does this woman actually add value to my life, or is she just coming back because her ego took a hit? That's the real test. Silence gave you space, not just to get her attention, but to get clarity. Some women pull away because they want space, others do it because they're entertaining other options, and some do it to manipulate you emotionally and see how much power they have over you. You'll never know which one it is until you stop reacting and just go quiet. That silence reveals everything. A woman who actually has feelings for you will feel that silence like a storm. She'll feel the shift, and she'll either come back with real effort or she'll disappear completely, which in itself is a blessing. Because here's the thing, the women who truly respect you will notice the silence and respond with maturity. They'll ask if everything's okay. They'll apologize if they realize they pulled back too hard. They'll open the door to communication again, because they want the connection to continue. But the ones who are just playing games, they'll ghost, they'll ignore, they'll try to make you chase harder, and when you don't, they'll eventually replace you. Not because you weren't valuable, but because they never really valued you in the first place. And that's the power of silence. It exposes people. It shows you who's emotionally real and who's just using you for attention, validation, or power. And the best part, you didn't have to argue, beg, or explain. You just stayed still. You let the silence make the noise. Most guys mess this up by thinking silence is just about waiting, like it's some passive, lazy trick. But in reality, silence is active. You're not just sitting there hoping she comes back. Admires a man who chases her down, blowing up her phone, begging for another chance, sending good morning texts like nothing happened. That kind of guy might get temporary attention, but he loses long-term respect. And once respect is gone, attraction isn't far behind. On the flip side, the guy who gives her space and vanishes into silence, that guy creates mystery. She might talk trash about him to her friends, say things like, he didn't even care. But trust me, she's thinking about him, because silence lingers. Words fade, but silence, it echoes. And the longer that silence stretches, the more impact it has, especially if she was used to being the one in control. Maybe she always had guys blowing up her DMs. Maybe she was the girl who could pull away and have someone else waiting. But when you don't follow that pattern, her mental model starts breaking. She thought she had you figured out. She didn't. She thought she could walk away and you'd chase. You didn't. Now she's confused. That confusion leads to curiosity, and curiosity leads to obsession. She wants to know what you're doing, who you're talking to, why you're so calm, and why you haven't cracked under pressure. This is where your silence becomes psychological leverage, because silence has weight. And in dating, that weight turns into pressure, not just on her, but on the dynamic between you. If she cared, even a little bit, that silence gets louder by the day. She'll start thinking about the good moments. She'll start replaying your last conversation. She'll start wondering if she made a mistake. And the beauty of this is you don't have to do anything to make that happen. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to trick. You just disengage. You remove the emotional fuel from the fire. And now the only person feeding that fire is her. But let's be clear, silence isn't a punishment, it's a boundary. You're not trying to make her feel bad. You're simply protecting your energy. You're not chasing someone who chose to pull away. You're not lowering your standards for temporary validation. And you're not reacting emotionally to someone who may not even know what she wants. You're saying through your silence, I'm not going to beg for someone who doesn't appreciate me. And that message, even if it's unspoken, hits harder than any speech you could give. Now, what's really powerful is that silence magnifies time. 1 week of silence can feel like a month to her because she doesn't know what's going on in your head. She doesn't know how you're feeling. And that uncertainty is where her mind starts creating all kinds of scenarios. Is he seeing someone new? Did he really just move on that fast? Was I just a placeholder? Her mind doesn't have closure, so it tries to create one. And most of the time, it ends up painting you as more valuable in hindsight than she ever gave you credit for in the moment. Meanwhile, on your end, you're detaching from the emotional chaos. You're no longer waiting on a reply. You're not wondering when she'll come around. You're focused on your mission, your growth, your self-respect. That's when you become magnetic. Not because you're playing games, but because you're showing that you're whole, with or without her. That kind of energy is rare, and it's attractive as hell. What silence also does is reset the power dynamic. Before, she pulled away because she felt she had options. She had the power, but the moment you stop reacting, the dynamic shifts. You're not the guy sitting by your phone anymore. You're the man she's watching from a distance, wondering what's changed. That power shift is subtle, but it's real. And most importantly, it's earned. You didn't demand it. You didn't force it. You simply chose not to engage where you weren't valued. Some women will test your silence too. They'll throw out a breadcrumb, a meme, a hey message, a random emoji. That's not her wanting you back. That's her ego, checking to see if it still has pull. Don't fall for it. One-word messages after days of silence, that's not a real effort. That's bait. If she truly values you, she'll communicate with intention. She'll apologize if needed. She'll be clear. Anything less than that, and she's just testing how much she can get away with. And if you break your silence too soon, you're giving her the answer. She still controls the frame. That's why silence isn't just a move, it's a mindset. You're saying, I don't chase what pulls away, I don't beg to be kept, and I don't let someone else's indecision decide my worth. That mindset shifts everything. It's what separates emotionally strong men from reactive ones. And once a woman senses that strength, it forces her to rethink how she views you. She may not admit it right away. She may try to hide it, but her behavior will tell you everything. And here's what usually happens next. After enough time passes and you still haven't reached out, she'll either come back with vulnerability or she'll disappear completely. And that moment, right there, that's your answer. If she comes back with softness, clarity, and intention, you've got something to work with. If she stays distant or comes back playing games, you've dodged a bullet. Either way, silence did what it was supposed to do. Reveal the truth without you having to lift a finger. The power of staying silent after she pulls away isn't just in making her miss you, it's in learning to value your own peace more than her attention. You start realizing how much energy you wasted trying to keep someone who wasn't showing up fully for you. You start to notice that you were explaining yourself too much, defending yourself too much, giving too much of yourself just to maintain something that maybe should have ended a long time ago. And now you've got clarity. Her silence was a test, but your silence became your answer. Some women don't come back, and that's a blessing. You'll be tempted to think your silence didn't work, but that's not how it goes. Silence isn't a trick to win. Someone back, it's a filter. It separates the ones who cared from the ones who only enjoyed the attention, the ones who just wanted to be chased, entertained, or validated. They vanish once the chase ends, and you want those women gone. Why? Because the kind of woman who pulls away and never checks in again isn't someone who ever planned to build anything real with you. She was more into the control than the connection. But the one who felt something real, she'll feel your absence, and if she values what you had, she'll find her way back. Not through games, not through manipulation, but through honesty. And that's what you want, a real reconnection, not some breadcrumb interaction that only drags things out. The silence you chose sent a message. I don't compete for someone who isn't sure about me. That's not arrogance. That's maturity. That's confidence. That's what women remember, even if they pretend they don't. Because no matter how tough or independent she acts, every woman notices when a man walks away calmly, when he doesn't beg, when he doesn't explode, when he doesn't chase. That calm exit, that's what sticks in her mind. That's what replays when she's alone. That's what makes her rethink everything. You didn't scream, you didn't argue, you didn't guilt trip, you just left the door open and walked through it. And silence, that's the sound the door makes when it closes behind you. Quiet, but heavy. Now here's something most guys don't realize. Silence after a woman pulls away isn't just attractive, it's educational. It teaches her that your love isn't guaranteed, that if she mistreats you or plays games, you won't be there waiting like a backup plan. And once a woman learns that about you, she either steps up or she steps out. Either way, you win. You stop tolerating inconsistency. You stop feeding an unbalanced dynamic. And most importantly, you start building your life without needing her to validate it. You don't use silence as revenge. You use it as respect for yourself. You're not out here ghosting women or playing mind games. You're simply choosing not to entertain someone who walked away first. That's not cold. That's called emotional discipline. You know what happens when you don't have that discipline? You keep going back to women who don't deserve you. You keep chasing closure from people who are happy to leave you confused. You keep holding on to hope that a low-effort woman will suddenly become high value. And let's be honest, has that ever worked? Silence teaches you that you don't need closure. You don't need explanations. You don't even need an apology. All you need is the strength to sit with your own company and say, I'm still good. And when she finally realizes what she lost, whether it's days later or months later, she'll feel it. She'll see your silence as strength, not indifference. And the moment she sees you've moved on, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, that's when the regret hits. That's when the flashbacks start. That's when she realizes you were the one who got away, not the one who begged to stay. So what happens when you stay silent after she pulls away? You flip the script. You go from being the one left behind to the one she can't stop thinking about. You stop being the emotional safety net and start being the man she lost access to. And even if she never says a word about it, you'll know. Because silence reveals the truth faster than words ever could. Watch the next video.